Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jamie here from Sharonatsea. Hey, we love cruising. I mean, of course you know that. You've seen our videos. Sharon, Matthew, and myself are huge fans, but we also know that cruising can come with its challenges. I mean, sometimes things can happen that you weren't expecting, and not all cruises are going to be perfect. I mean, we're not confused. We understand that. I mean, when you pack thousands of people into a floating, self-contained city, you can run into situations you weren't expecting. And when we run into those situations, we refer to those as cruising speed bumps. Now, over our years of cruising, we've figured out kind of how to maneuver those speed bumps, work our way around them, or at least drive smoothly over them. And today I'm going to talk about 5 cruising speed bumps that you could run into and why you shouldn't be too concerned about them and how you might be able to maneuver them successfully right after this. Hey, really quick, I just want to say thanks for clicking on the video and watching. We sure hope you like what you see. If you do enjoy cruise-oriented content here on YouTube, we'd love for you to consider hitting the subscribe button. Click the notification bell so you're always aware of new videos coming out. And make sure you join us every Monday night for our Monday Night Live Cruise Chat show. Now let's get back to talking about those cruising speed bumps. All right, number 1, you've seen it on the news. You've heard of this type of thing happening to cruise ships. You can have mechanical issues on a cruise ship. That's definitely what we would refer to as a cruising speed bump. You know, you get on that big ship, you're for anywhere from 3 to 7 days or however long your cruise is going, and you expect everything to be perfect with regards to the operations of the ship. But just like anything else, a cruise ship can have mechanical issues. I mean, the funny thing is lately we've heard more about these big, beautiful, brand new ships running into problems than some of the older ones that have been out there cruising for many years. And I think it's like anything else. When new technology is put into place, a lot of times, people aren't sure how it's going to perform over the long haul, and you run into situations you weren't expecting. So a lot of these cruise ships that are brand new with all this brand new technology going on to run them, they run into a situation at sea, and they're still learning how to figure those things out and how to fix things as they go. But in most cases, any mechanical issues are dealt with pretty quickly and fixed right away. The only thing you really might run into, besides any extreme situation, would be a brief loss of power. I mean, that can happen, and you'll hear about it every once in a while when you're watching cruise news. So realizing this could happen, there's something Sharon and I usually do when we cruise. There's some things that we bring along so that we can make sure we're prepared in the event that that happens. I mean, first of all, we try to make sure we're aware of our surroundings and where our cabin's located. We do always tend to get a balcony versus interior cabins. Now, I know a lot of folks love the interior cabins, but with the balcony, at least we know if there's a power failure during the day, we're going to have light available to us in our cabin. Another thing is we always bring a flashlight, and this might sound funny, but a headlamp. That way, in the event that there was any power outage in the evening or we had to get around a little bit, we always have a light source so we can safely maneuver the ship. We also make sure that we bring portable charging sources, batteries we can plug into to make sure our phones are charged and things like that. And just having those couple little things that gives us peace of mind that if we're ever stuck with a short, quick little power outage on one of our cruises, we're going to be as prepared as we can for that. And that way we have something to hold us over till power is restored. So mechanical issues on a ship is a cruising speed bump you could run into. Usually nothing extreme, just a brief little power outage. It's rare, but it could happen, so be prepared for it. Another cruising speed bump you might run into is weather. Now I look at weather as 2 different things. Number 1, there's just the basic change in weather that you're not used to when you get onto a cruise ship. And number 2, there can be inclement weather, where you run into weather you weren't expecting, rain, winds, things like that. So the first thing we'll touch on real quick is the weather that you're just not used to. For us, we come from Arizona and go on cruises. So when we go on a Caribbean cruise or something down south, there's a lot of humidity that we are not used to. We can handle 110-degree weather like anybody. It's pretty easy, but put us in 80 degrees with 80% humidity and it really kicks our butts. So if you're from a climate that doesn't have a lot of humidity, be prepared for that. I mean, when we leave the ship and go on an excursion, we'll bring a change of shirt because one of those might get soaked with sweat if you're in a very humid area. We make sure also that we hydrate because you're sweating a lot when you're out on an excursion off the ship, and you need to be ready for that so dehydration doesn't catch you off guard. Another thing we bring sometimes are cooling towels. The towels that you can wear around your neck and as they stay wet, they create a little bit of coolness. Definitely something that'll come in handy. So just be aware that you're going to run into very humid climates, and that being aware of the weather is going to be pretty important. You can research it ahead of time to know what to expect from the areas that you're cruising to. Now, the other aspect of weather is changes in weather. Not every day is going to be a beautiful sunny day, and you can run into afternoon storms, rain showers, and things like that when you're traveling, especially cruising in the Caribbean. Now, a rain shower can certainly affect your day. It can take a little of the fun out of laying out in the sun on the Lido deck, that's for sure. Well, you got your choice of any chair this morning on the Lido deck. It's a wet one. But it can also affect the plans that you have when you get off the ship in port to go out and do excursions. So yeah, I guess it can rain on your cruise. Coming down nice. Oh yeah, it's a good one. Thank you, Honduras. So one thing we always do is we try to make sure that we have a plan B. Just in case our plan A gets rained out, we have something else that we can look into doing that won't be affected by the weather. Now sure, you can get back on the ship, but maybe you still have the opportunity to see the sights and experience the culture of the port that you're visiting in, and you don't want to miss out on that. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So always research what you can do in case the weather affects your main plan when you get off the ship in port. Changes in weather can definitely be a cruising speed bump, and if you're not aware and not ready for them, it can have a negative effect on your cruise. Make sure you research the weather that you're going to be experiencing in where you're going, and always make sure you have a plan B in case you run into some weather you weren't expecting. Now, another cruising speed bump you can run into is itinerary changes. Now, these can happen for a lot of different reasons. Some people book cruises based on the cruise ship to enjoy what the ship has to offer, but many people book cruises based on the ports that the cruise is going to. People put a lot of effort into planning, researching, and making arrangements to go on excursions. You know, changes can happen unexpectedly with regard to itineraries. Usually things like high winds or rough seas can have the effect where the cruise ship may not be able to dock in port for a day. There could be other things that happen to make your cruise ship go off the regular course, and maybe they have to reverse itineraries as well. Stop in different places on different days than you were expecting. Now this can certainly have an effect on your cruise. I mean, if you've booked excursions ahead of time through the cruise ship and they change the itinerary, chances are you're just going to simply get refunded or have the option to make some alternative plans. But if you've booked excursions outside of the cruise ship, that's when you can really be affected. So we make sure that any excursion we book outside of the cruise ship, number one, is through a reputable company where we know if we've made a deposit or we prepaid for the excursion, we will get a refund. Number two, we make sure we know how to communicate with that company once we get in port or from the ship, so we can let them know if we're not going to be there. We don't want them thinking that we're a no-show, potentially charging us for an amount that we shouldn't have been charged for because they think that we just didn't show up for the excursion. And we're always aware that itinerary changes can happen, so that way if something does happen, we're not left heartbroken about it. A lot of complaints you'll hear from folks about cruising is that they took this cruise only to visit this particular port and the itinerary was changed, and what's the cruise line going to do about it? Well, usually when they change itineraries, it's really a safety reason. So I'm not going to complain to the cruise line for making sure that I'm kept safe. And I do not believe that cruise lines would purposely change an itinerary so that we can spend a day at sea and they can get more of my money gambling or drinking or whatever the case is. A lot of folks say that. I'm just not buying it. But be prepared for itinerary changes. Make sure you have a plan in case something like that happens. And that way, if that speed bump comes your way, you can maneuver it very smoothly. Now here's a speed bump you could run into a little more often than the others. And that is getting sick. You know, when you're cruising, you are susceptible to germs. It happens. Now there's really two types of sickness out there that we're talking about. One thing is going to be seasickness. That happens to folks, and I'll tell you right now, if you are susceptible to motion sickness, if you're the kind of person that rides in the back seat of a car and doesn't feel that well, there's a chance that some of the motion of the ship could have an effect on you. So you want to make sure that you plan ahead for that. If it's your first cruise and you just don't know if you're going to be seasick or not, bring a little bit of seasick medicine. Look into some of the other alternatives to combat and battle seasickness. We've actually done a few videos, and we'll go ahead and throw a link up top here so that you can do a little more research on your own about how to handle seasickness on a cruise. But it's something that can definitely happen. So stay ahead of the game, bring your own medications. That way, if you do start to feel a little ill, you can address it right away and make sure that seasickness does not affect your cruise. Now, the other type of sickness is just basic cough and cold type of stuff. I mean, you're surrounded by thousands of other people, and there's going to be germs flying around that ship. Now, I know you've heard the extreme cases of like norovirus and gastrointestinal issues. Hey, that can happen too. And if you get hit with that, there's really no way around it but to ride it out. But you can do a little preventive maintenance when it comes to getting on the cruise ship to make sure that you don't get sick as easy if you come in contact with germs. We love to load up on things like vitamin C, emergency, and stuff like that before our cruise to make sure that our defenses are built up. And we make sure we do the basic things, washing hands and stuff like that during the cruise. We try not to touch stuff. We make sure that we wipe down our cabin when we get in there. And we've talked about that in other videos. But we also bring along basic medications, and that's how we kind of prepare for situations like that. We'll bring a little bit of cold medicine. We'll bring some Tylenol, Advil, and stuff like that. We'll bring a little medication to help belly aches. Maybe a little something for acid reflux or heartburn. You know, because we want to be prepared and have those things available, and we sure don't want to have to go down to the cruise ship shop and buy them where they're probably going to be a little more expensive. And we don't want to have to wait to get in port to buy it in case something hits us on a sea day. Now keep in mind, if you do come down with any kind of sickness that's a little more serious, there will be an infirmary on the ship. They will have doctors on board that can help you out if you catch anything more than just your basic cold. But you'll hear it all the time. People during their cruise or after their cruise come down with flu-like symptoms or something like that, and it's just kind of normal. So be smart, use good hygiene, try to stay ahead of the game with a little bit of preventive medicine, and hopefully if you do those things, you can avoid running into those cruising speed bumps like getting sick on the cruise. Now, one last major cruising speed bump people run into, and it's kind of funny because I see it all the time, is not paying attention to the sun and coming down with severe cases of sunburn. Now, I know it might sound a little silly at first, but I'll tell you what, we've been lucky enough to be on a number of cruises, and virtually every cruise we take, I will see people that get very severe cases of sunburn. I'm talking like practically blistering skin. Listen, it happened to me, as a matter of fact, on the first cruise Sharon and I ever took. Many years ago, on the Carnival Elation, as a matter of fact. On the first sea day, as we left the port of Long Beach, we decided to lay out in the sun a little bit. And I lathered up, I put on my lotion, my arms, my face, my belly, the whole 9 yards. But guess what I forgot? My feet and my ankles. Well, after about an hour and a half of laying out, we got done. And within a couple hours after that, my feet were red, and I did have the beginnings of blisters due to the bad sunburn. It really ruined about 2 to 3 days of my cruise. I couldn't wear shoes or socks. We had to stop in Puerto Vallarta, and we had an amazing tour lined up that I really had to sit back and not be a part of because I couldn't walk around the rainforest down there, or the jungle. It was really bad. So I can't stress enough to make sure that you don't get a bad case of sunburn. That is a horrible cruising speed bump, which will definitely take its toll on your experience. Make sure you bring your lotion. Bring a higher SPF than you would usually use at home. Also, check the dates on your suntan lotion before you bring it. Quite often, we use a little bit of that here and there each year. Next thing you know, you're pulling out a thing of suntan lotion from 5 years ago that's already expired and may not have the proper effectiveness. So check those expiration dates. Lather up good before you go out of the cabin in the morning, and reapply a couple of times during the day to protect yourself. We like to use lotion before we leave the cabin, and then follow up numerous times a day using spray when we're out and about. And one other thing we like to bring is kind of like an after-burn relief cream or something like that. Bring some aloe, something with a numbing ingredient in it. So if you do get some sunburn, you can apply that and still wear clothing, shoes, socks, and the likes, so you don't have to walk around in pain all over the cruise ship. I'll tell you right now, there's nothing worse than having a bad sunburn and then having to have your formal attire on for elegant night on the cruise. A shirt, tie, and a sunburn around your neck do not go well together. So guys and gals, that's it. That's a list of 5 or 6 speed bumps you might run into when you're on your next cruise. These things can happen. Cruising is the best vacation out there, but sometimes it's not perfect. So plan ahead, be aware, do your research, have a plan B, and know what you're getting yourself into. That way, if you run into one of these cruising speed bumps on your cruise, you will smoothly drive right over it and go on having a great vacation. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, make sure if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button as you check out of the video today. Join us on Facebook at the Sharonatsea Cruise Crew. Check us out every Monday night for a Monday Night Live cruise chat show. And until next time, From Sharon, Matthew, myself, and everyone here at Sharon at Sea, happy cruising.